How's it going, everyone? Today I want to share with you my reasonings for why I switched to train isolations first and why I think this tactic has helped me to see progress again in my arms. If you are like me, you probably started seeing decent progress on your arms when you first started lifting. But after those initial gains, it seemed the only time your arms got bigger is when they were pumped full of blood. So, why are we taught to train compounds first and isolations last? I could only think of two reasons that I was taught in school. Number one, for the simple thought that doing a multi joint movement will warm everything up so that you are already warmed up for when you do isolations. And number two, compounds use more muscles, which uses more energy, so they should be performed when you have the most energy. These are both valid points, but if our goal is to build muscle, we need to assess if following this protocol will be beneficial. As for the idea that it'll help warm you up, if we stop and actually think about this, it is actually no different either way. Everything starts as not being warmed up, whether it's a compound or isolation lift. Obviously, you can do a general warm up before, but I'm talking about taking those working muscles through that range of motion. So, if I want to do a tricep pushdown as my first lift, nothing is currently warmed up at the start, but after I complete a set of tricep pushdowns, I will have blood in my triceps and they will be warm. If I do a bench press, nothing is warmed up until I complete a set. Then my chest, shoulders, and triceps will be somewhat warmed up. The key, though, is that you are mainly warmed up for that lift. The bench press after one set won't entirely warm up your shoulders or triceps. So if you go to do a tricep pushdown after the warm-up set on bench, you will still want to do a warm-up for the pushdowns. My point here is that it is not a requirement to do a compound lift as a warm-up prior to an isolation lift. You do not have to warm up other surrounding muscles, whether it be an antagonistic muscle, an agonist, or a synergist muscle to get the full benefits of an isolation lift. I think this is the method a lot of people fall on when they don't understand why you train compounds first. I know I thought this for a while. I heard this from my professors in school, the books I read, and from all the big organizations like the AECSM, NASM, the NSCA. They all said to always train compounds first. So I just assumed, well, to get the full benefits, I have to follow that order. As for compounds require more energy, so do them when you have the most energy, definitely makes sense. But that's when you need to ask yourself, do you care about having performance on specific lifts, or do you care more about your physique? If you really care about the bench, then yes, do that first. Once I realized that the rule of compounds first was just an assumed goal that people cared about compounds, I thought, well, I actually want to get my tricep extensions up and I want to get my barbell curl up. Those are the lifts I really needed to work on to even out my physique. So eventually I challenged this idea and flipped the order. My initial thought was I'm more fresh at the beginning of my session, so I should train the muscles I care about first. And I think you can already guess the result. It worked. I finally started seeing growth in my arms again. I have very stubborn arms, my triceps and biceps, and I really have to go all out to get them to grow, or else they will just maintain. It was shortly after I made this switch, about a year and a half ago now, I coincidentally discovered Basement Bodybuilding's channel, where his big thing is to stop treating isolations as accessories. and to instead treat them as main lifts, and compounds are really accessories to your isolations, depending on the lift and your goal, of course. I believe as bodybuilders or anyone who wants to build their physique, before you blindly adopt any training method, really understand the purpose of that method and if that's what you're trying to achieve. I think Basement Bodybuilding has a great channel on really breaking down why you should train certain ways depending on your goal, especially if your goal is bodybuilding. And I would highly recommend you check out his channel if you haven't already. As a bodybuilder, you want to find what lifts will build your physique the most and hammer those. Then use other lifts to bring up those lifts. Notice how I said lifts that will build your physique the most, not compound lifts or the low bar squat or the close grip bench. The lifts that build the muscles you want to grow. And it will take time to figure out what will work best for you, but that's the fun part of lifting, in my opinion. Once things start to click and you watch yourself grow and develop over time, it's a very satisfying feeling. To wrap this up, I want to add, don't just be a theorist or someone who likes to hear about new ideas and will just strongly agree or disagree immediately. Instead, actually do it, test it out, be your own guinea pig. Even if something doesn't work for you, then that's not a loss because you just learned something about yourself. You collected data on yourself. And the more data points you have, the more intelligent decisions you can make about your training going forward.